Counting or not counting gang violence? Great.
Oh my God. Go, run!
Counting or not counting gang violence? Great.
A bolt of lightning in broad daylight, the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. A person of interest was detained for questioning and then released. Hello, everyone. I'm Mr. High. Here, I will join you in exploring mysterious, dramatic, and full of surprise stories. If you enjoy this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment so I know you're with me. Your support is the greatest motivation for me to keep telling more fascinating stories. This morning, Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, woke up and headed to the Utah Valley University campus in Orem to do what he loved most: talk directly with students. The event was outdoors, under a tent. He sat down on his familiar chair, smiled, and began taking questions. In the crowd, someone's voice mixed into the noise. "Are you voting for Kamala?" "I am." "Okay, what is her?" A fragment of dialogue that flickered and then drifted away among the sea of people. 20 minutes after the event began, around 12:20 p.m. Mountain Time, a question about gun violence was raised. At that exact moment, a shot rang out. The bullet struck Kirk in the neck. I will not show that video. It is too horrific. What followed was chaos. Students dove for cover amidst screams. His security team shielded Kirk, rushed him into an SUV in a desperate attempt to save every second, then sped to the hospital. But all efforts failed. Medically, a penetrating neck wound is especially dangerous as it can damage the carotid artery or the airway esophagus. If a major vessel is torn, the body can lose blood very quickly, causing sudden hypotension and respiratory failure. The emergency priorities are hemorrhage control and securing the airway. The crowd's freeze, flight, fight reaction in those moments is a survival reflex well documented in crisis psychology. None of that changes the heartbreaking truth. Time was not on Kirk's side. At the scene, a man was restrained. For a moment, it seemed a suspect had been caught, but he was later released after questioning. At the same time, FBI Director Kash Patel posted a statement saying a suspect had been taken into custody. Shortly after, he updated that the man had been released and the investigation was ongoing, emphasizing a commitment to transparency when possible. In other words, so far, no one has been officially detained for the shooting. This confusion reflects the fog of crisis often seen in public acts of violence. Early information is easily fragmented or wrong due to the rush of reports, while authorities must balance updates with preserving evidence. Charlie Kirk is gone, leaving behind his wife Erica and 2 young children. Earlier this year, Erica posted a video on TikTok thanking her husband, calling him the love story of my life. A private memory, now a wound cutting deep against the small national mourning of a family. Back to the investigation. As noted, there were 2 moments when the public thought there had been a breakthrough. A man detained, then released, an announcement of a suspect arrested, then corrected. That night at the press conference, the tension was so thick, every breath seemed to pound against the listeners' chests. All eyes fixed on the screen as Utah Public Safety Commissioner Bo Mason stood up, his voice deep. This is the moment he escaped. On the video, the roof of a building appeared in the upper left corner. The gunman's figure was visible, lying flat, like a ghost waiting. Then, in an instant, he sprang up, dashed behind the structure, slipped around the right corner, climbed over the edge, and dropped to the ground. At that moment, my heart clenched. A man had just fallen, and the killer vanished before the eyes of thousands. But that haste left behind traces that could not be erased. On the wall he gripped, experts found faint palm prints, fresh enough to hope for DNA extraction. On the ground, shoe prints pressed clearly, matching white-soled Converse, the kind of ordinary accessory worn by countless students, now turned into damning evidence. His clothing was unremarkable in a crowd. Black shirt, black pants. Only the white soles reflecting light gave him away on video. The camera recorded every step. He darted across the lawn, slipped past the parking lot like someone who knew every corner. The Utah noon sun cast his shadow long across the pavement, but no one in the panicked crowd noticed. Seconds later, he crossed the street and vanished into the dense woods beside campus. It was there that authorities later discovered the rifle he had abandoned, cold and undeniable as proof. Officials reported they had found the murder weapon, a bolt-action rifle, a manually loaded firearm, but with tremendous power. The gun was abandoned in the woods, right where the suspect vanished after his daring leap from the building. The scene chilled everyone. The shooter showed no hesitation, every move calculated, even discarding the rifle as though it had all been staged. The weapon now sits in the FBI crime lab, awaiting analysis of every detail. And what deepens the suspicion? No one has yet determined who the gun belongs to. The question tormenting everyone: how could a public event attended by thousands of students expose such glaring security gaps? When reporters asked about protective measures, officials stayed silent, deflected, then said this was not the time to discuss that. The priority, they insisted, was hunting the escaped killer. To the victim's family, those words cut like a knife, leaving them with a hollow helplessness. A young man was dead, and all that remained were promises to explain later. From the university's side, Utah Valley University representatives insisted they had followed all security protocols. But in the face of harsh reality, what do protocols mean when a sniper from afar could still aim so easily, and a single bullet pierced Charlie's neck before the eyes of thousands? That image I still recall through a student's account. We only heard the bang, then saw him collapse. Everyone ran in panic, not knowing where to hide. Those sounds, the screams, the frantic footsteps, will haunt them forever. I imagine if that day there had been another layer of protection, stricter checks, or even a change of venue, would Charlie still be alive? But now that question echoes only in regret. Security is meant to protect lives, yet on that blindingly bright afternoon, it was no more than a thin veil, ripped apart by a cold bullet from 200 yards away. That moment left behind a costly lesson. Freedom of speech is a protected right, but without solid security measures alongside it, that right can be stolen in an instant. Charlie Kirk fell, right on the very stage where he had raised his voice each day. And that truth, like a shock, forces us to face it. Sometimes, just one small gap in security is enough for darkness to descend, to take a human life, leaving behind painful questions without answers. Honestly, when I read the whole story again, I cannot help but feel choked. A 31-year-old man, full of energy, speaking of his ideals before thousands of students, suddenly collapsed from a cold, distant bullet. That image not only fills me with sorrow for Charlie Kirk, for his young wife and two small children, but also with anguish over the fragility of human life. Just one lapse, one person filled with hatred, is enough to erase an entire future. The greatest humanitarian lesson I draw from this is to cherish life and human values. Violence never brings justice. Hatred can never replace truth. Differences in opinion, disagreement with someone's voice, none of these grant anyone the right to take another's life. Behind every life is a family, love, children needing to be embraced and protected. This story reminds us that security, justice, and humanity are equally important. Justice must be carried out to punish evil, but compassion must also be nurtured so that no more meaningless bullets fly in the future. Thank you for walking with me through this tense and haunting journey. Let us take a moment to think of Charlie Kirk, of his family, and of the precious humanitarian lesson this tragedy leaves behind. See you again in the next stories. They say it is only the left that burns books, that censors. And because of that, Charlie Kirk knew well that his life was threatened nearly every day. He once shared with friends he could not take his kids to the supermarket, nor dare walk in the park with his wife. Erica, his companion in life, knew the danger, but still accepted it, because she believed the mission her husband pursued to defend ideals and American democracy was sacred. But it all ended with a single bullet. A perpetrator, consumed by hatred, took aim at him and pulled the trigger.
Oh my God. Go, run,
Because
run.
when Charlie stood before students, awakening in them the ability to think logically, many changed. That impact made extremists see him as a thorn that needed to be removed. People often think that young people will eventually change their views once they grow older, marry, and have jobs. But Charlie believed, no, engage in dialogue now. That belief led to an unprecedented reality. The 18 to 25 age group was becoming one of the strongest conservative forces. This stemmed from frustrations during the COVID-19 pandemic, strict lockdowns, being unable to attend parents' funerals. All of it made young people question. And when they sought answers, Charlie appeared with the truth. In behavioral science, this phenomenon is called cognitive dissonance. When lived experience conflicts with imposed narratives, people are forced to seek alternative explanations. In those moments, Charlie's presence became an anchor. And that is why many believe he was silenced by violence. When news broke that Charlie had been shot, Bob Machuen, his close friend and former legislator, recalled sitting at his desk when he received a call from Kirk's chief of staff. He's been shot in the neck. At that moment, details were scarce, just fragments. It took 15 to 20 minutes before the media confirmed the story. Everyone prayed, hoping he would pull through. But the miracle never came. Bob said, choked with grief, "No one can replace him. There is no second Charlie." Clearly, the shooting bore the mark of a political assassination. A public event held hundreds of times at universities turned into a deadly trap. The question arises, will there be federal charges? Most likely, yes, given the political nature of the act. The U.S. Department of Justice is now involved, and under federal law, the maximum penalty is death. On the legal side, in politically motivated attacks, federal jurisdiction is often invoked to ensure no local politics interferes. In Utah, the law is already strict, but when national security is at stake, the DOJ takes control. This means the killer, if caught and convicted, could face the death penalty, as federal law provides. For Bob, who once raised a glass at Charlie's wedding, memories of his late friend are not just personal ties. They are testimony to a man always devoted, always committed to his beliefs. He emphasized, there is no one like him. He was one of a kind. The shock, the disbelief still lingers. Forensic science will continue tracing the bullet's trajectory, reconstructing the scene, while the law seeks to answer who must be held accountable. But another question, heavier beyond any courtroom, remains. Can a society protect voices that dare to challenge, or will it continue to watch them be silenced by the barrel of a gun? Charlie Kirk, a man his friends called a lifelong learner, devoted 2 hours each day to reading, research, and study. His mornings began with exercise in the Bible, followed by hours immersed in books, from Hillsdale materials to works of philosophy and politics. After that, he led a massive organization with a budget of hundreds of millions of dollars and over 1,000 employees during the past election season. Unlike many who stop at words, Charlie truly acted, and that is what astonished people about his influence. Bob Machuen recalled, in recent years, as the old Department of Justice was accused of overreach, it was no longer uncommon for agents to knock on the doors of conservative activists. He himself went through that ordeal, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars just to answer investigations, though he had committed no crime. And Charlie, though younger than Bob's own son, stood by him, encouraging, "Bob, I'm here. I've got your back." To Bob, he was an unshakable friend, strong and steadfast enough to carry a nation's trust. Yet the environment Charlie operated in was never safe. For years, when invited to speak at universities, he often faced obstacles from opposition, even outright blockades. When he was shouted down or silenced, security did not intervene. In social psychology, this is a form of deplatforming, cutting off dialogue by eliminating space for dissenting voices. But in the last 18 to 20 months, the tide turned. Young people began showing up in growing numbers, crowds of thousands rendering those attempts ineffective. This shift was not only political, but spiritual. Statistics show Bible sales rose 22% over the past year. Many young people returned to faith, and Charlie was a key part of that renewal. Students who once felt alone realized, through Charlie's words, that they were not isolated. The community effect in social psychology has powerful reach. One person speaking out can lead hundreds, thousands more to rise. But that change also stirred fear among his opponents. Bob said, Charlie gave his life for that ideal. That is why his enemies sought to eliminate him. He also spoke of Erica, Charlie's wife, a woman both intelligent and resilient. They met when Erica applied for a senior position at Turning Point. The interview lasted more than 2 hours, Charlie questioning her on every viewpoint. At the end, instead of offering the job, he said, "I won't hire you, but I'd like to date you." That surprising story began a deep love, a happy family with 2 children. And now this tragedy leaves a void nothing can fill for Erica. Despite political differences, Bob emphasized everyone must admit this is a tragedy. It should never have happened. Tonight, a woman has lost her husband. 2 children have lost their father. and America has lost a voice that, to many, is irreplaceable. As this report ends, we are left with shock and unanswered questions. What happens next? For now, the second person questioned has been released, and the shooter remains at large. Charlie Kirk, 31, has fallen. The manhunt continues. We will keep updating as new information emerges. I am Mr. High. Thank you for watching and staying with me until the end of this video. See you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I truly want to send you my thanks.